Mexico, Malawi, a book, and the April 2022 JW broadcasting. What do all of these things have in common? Probably they intersect at one of the largest scandals that this organization has ever seen. Let's talk about it. So if you walked up to anyone on the street and said Mexico and Malawi, they'd probably just give you a sort of strange look and be on their way.
I'm confused.
Yes, I am.
And one of these people could be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. You say Mexico, Malawi to them, and it means absolutely nothing other than two countries on planet Earth. Now, a more interesting thing will happen if you say this to a very particular group of people, and that group of people is the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. There is, underneath Mexico and Malawi, one of the biggest scandals that does wake Jehovah's Witnesses up from their indoctrination, so it's quite important. So, let us go on a quick journey back in time, because our story starts in 1960.
Listen, baby, ain't no mountain high.
So, let our journey begin back into 1960. Close your eyes and open your senses to the sights and sounds of the day. Aquanet wafting through the air, the intense sound of a V8 engine that somehow only makes 125 horsepower, roaring in the distance. Oh, wait, no, I'm talking about America. Our story starts in Mexico. So let's go on a journey to Mexico. So it's 1960 in Mexico, and there is a one-party state. A party that actually ruled for 71 years consecutively. Now, in order to thwart this evil, Chevy Chase, Martin Short, and Steve Martin ride in and...
I'm Lucky Day.
I'm Ned Needleland.
I'm Dusty Bottoms, and together we're
The Three Amigos.
Oh, wait. Wrong movie. Now, in this one-party state, a young man was required, essentially, to do military service.
They are part of Mexico's Army of Peace, a civilian force of 200,000 required to register for a year of training.
He had to do it for at least 1 year, and he would get a little card after he had completed that military service, and he would be able to get a driver's license, obtain employment, get a passport, travel, all of that good stuff. So it was necessary. Now, this was a one-party state, mind you, and this was a political card saying that you had done your time and served in the military. Now, what does this mean to Jehovah's Witnesses? Well, you see, Jehovah's Witnesses like to stay politically neutral. Now, to a Jehovah's Witness, remaining politically neutral is fairly simple. You're not allowed to vote, you're not allowed to get involved in politics or support any political organization. You're not allowed to salute the flag or display the flag in any way. So that is what it basically means. And Watchtower is 100% consistent when they are making their rules on what it means and what it doesn't mean to be politically neutral. Now, back to Mexico. What Jehovah's Witnesses were basically doing in order to get around this issue of having to get a card that says that you completed military service and it would say that you are in the reserve army as well. What were they going to do in order to get around this? And they had a practice for a while of just bribing officials, because that worked. They could bribe an official, even though it was illegal, they could get their card and move on with their day. Now, surely, after a while, the reports from different parts of the world and the Watchtower literature started to make the brothers in Mexico sort of scratch their heads and ask, is this right what we're doing? And so they wrote to the headquarters back in New York. And what did they say? Well, in a letter dated June 2nd, 1960, they said this: "As to those who are relieved of military training by a monetary transaction with the officials who are involved herewith, this is on par with what is done in other Latin American countries, where brothers have paid for their relief through some military official in order to retain their freedom for theocratic activities. If members of the military establishment are willing to accept such an arrangement upon the payment of a fee that is the responsibility of these representatives of the national organization, in such a case the money paid does not go to the military establishment, but it is appropriated by the individual who undertakes the arrangement. If the conscience of certain brothers allow them to enter into such an arrangement for their continued freedom, we have no objection." So basically what they're saying is, it's okay to bribe a government official. Huh.
That doesn't seem fair.
Well, surely this ruling is going to have a wonderful effect throughout the world, because then anytime this situation comes up, we have a precedent. It's sort of like how you look at case law and you go back and you see, well, is there a precedent for any particular ruling going one way or the other? So, when an issue did come about which involved getting a political card, but actually paying for it illegally in a country where there was a one-party system, was Watchtower consistent there? Because a lot of bad stuff would happen if they weren't.
This is war with the enemy. Think that it was meant to be. Living in a time where disease is on every screen.
It's 1964, and Malawi has reached full independence from the United Kingdom. And from then, they become a one-party state all the way up until 1994, when they eventually become a multi-party state. Now, similar to Mexico, this one-party state required you to buy a political party card. So, did Jehovah's Witnesses? Awake, 1976, August 8th, page 5. It is because Jehovah's Witnesses refused to buy the Malawi Congress party card. This card declares the holder to be a member of the ruling political party of Malawi, but for Jehovah's Witnesses to buy a political card and thus join a political party would be an open denial of what they believe and stand for. So you're telling me that it's okay to bribe for a political party card, but it's not okay to buy one? Huh? Well, surely the reason that they refused to buy them is because it was just a small fine or something. It wasn't that, big of a deal. It's not like people were being dragged out of their homes or any horrible stuff like that, right? Oh boy. Just a quick COA. This next part is a little brutal, but it does come directly from a Watchtower publication. The yearbook, 1999, pages 182. Hi, it's Future Wally here, and I just wanted to make you guys aware of something as far as the video goes going forward. So, as it turns out, YouTube doesn't really like me saying a particular word. That word would be the equivalent of if you searched up ape on Reddit, it would be r/ape. So you just remove the slash and there you go. So anytime you hear this sound right here, you know that it is a replacement for the word that YouTube doesn't want me to say. Anyway, back with our regularly scheduled programming. For some of our dear sisters, the persecution was especially harrowing. Many were the reports and beating of Christian women. The sadistic attackers spared nobody. The elderly, the young, and even some pregnant sisters were put through such cruel ordeals. Some suffered miscarriages as a result. Once again, thousands were forced to flee their villages. Yeah, so pretty much if you refused to buy this political card, you were run out of town. Your fields were burned to the ground. You were dragged out of your home. You were beaten. Women, children. The worst possible human conditions that you can imagine is what's going on here. But why is all of this happening? What's the actual reason for this? If you're an active Jehovah's Witness, or know someone, or have a high opinion of Jehovah's Witnesses, this might be hard to hear, but it's true. These people were suffering the worst possible human living conditions imaginable, and they were suffering for it, all because of their faith, their trust, and their belief in the Watchtower and Bible Track organization. Now you probably are thinking, well, surely they have some sort of plan set up in order where they can have a restitution for the poor victims of this really bad inconsistency that led to death and PTSD, and just you never recover ever after you go through something so traumatic. So surely they are paying for therapy, paying for their houses. They're a $1 billion corporation. They have enough money to do it, but they aren't. They're not even saying sorry. They're not even apologizing. So now you're probably thinking, well, that's really messed up. I guess they probably just want to sweep the whole thing under the rug and then pretend like it didn't happen. Sorry to keep telling you what you might be thinking, but every time I tell you what you might be thinking, you're wrong. Because the April 2022 JW broadcast came out, and we saw this.
In our next segment, we'll see how Jehovah's spiritual family helped Brother Bastian Nyrenda endure years of intense hardship.
In the mid-1960s, when I was pioneering, the political system was changing rapidly in the country, making it difficult for brothers to maintain their neutral stand. Brothers were beaten, their Bibles and literature burned for refusing to buy political party cards. They burned down the brothers' homes and Kingdom Hall in my area. I was stopped because of not having a political party card. They tied my hands and started beating me severely. When they went to have supper, one stayed behind to guard me. He felt very sorry for me and said they will kill you when they return. So he suggested that if I can be able to at least crawl, then he would untie me and allow me to escape. It was dark outside, and I dragged myself along until I reached a brother's home who kindly assisted me.
Now take a second to think about that. This man was tied up, beaten, and he's sitting down to have his food with guards standing over him. A couple of them leave, and one of them says, "They are going to kill you, my man. They're going to kill you," and takes pity on you because he thinks, wow, what a crazy, silly, stupid reason that you're not buying this card, and unties him, and he's able to crawl, saving his life. Imagine if that was you, or your son or daughter or niece or nephew. Imagine. And all for what? For what? We're talking to you, Watchtower. Why did you put this man through that? And why do you refuse to acknowledge that you were wrong?
Jehovah made a way out so that I could endure. An official announcement was made that the work of Jehovah's Witnesses was banned. Our meetings were done at night from about 9 p.m. to about 1 a.m. in the morning. That is to avoid detection. We are not able to clap hands when things go well or sing songs, because for that we would be found. But to show appreciation, we just had to rub hands together.
And this gets to the very heart of the issue. These people are so delusional in their trust. They've been indoctrinated so heavily into Watchtower's propaganda that they are willing to risk their life, the life of their family, to still go and attend meetings up until 1 o'clock in the morning. Even though the work is banned, they're still willing to do that. That tells you just how powerful this organization is and why. You should be aware of these things. You should be made to realize just what this organization has the capability of doing to people for no justifiable reason. So that way, when someone says, oh, I used to be a Jehovah's Witness, you don't say to yourself, well, they just don't go to church anymore. It means a lot more to be a Jehovah's Witness than going to church on Sunday. It means going to church, potentially risking your life and the life of your family, just to go to meetings when your work is under ban. This is serious.
At my workplace, it became known that I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses and was arrested. I was taken to Chichiri prison and later transferred to Zomba prison, where they kept condemned criminals. I was kept in a cell next to the execution gallows. I thought I was also going to be executed as well. Jehovah calmed me, and remembering Romans 8:38, I was convinced that even death would not separate me from God's love. When I was released, I was so happy to be with Violet, my wife, and the children. But because it was extremely dangerous to stay in Malawi at that time, we had to go to Mozambique in Mlangeni camp, where we spent 3 years as refugees.
Yes, this wasn't just some single dude with a crazy idea in his head. This man has a family that he left behind because of the indoctrination that he received from Watchtower.
Because of civil war in Mozambique, we were forced back to Malawi in 1975. I was arrested and sent to Nyrenda prison. We had to work from morning to evening without food or rest. Cell blocks were overcrowded, with most of us sleeping on the floor. The scriptures and songs that we had memorized while we were at Mlangeni refugee camp in Mozambique were really very strengthening to us when we were in Nyrenda prison. And this was the time when that year text that we received in Mozambique helped us.
Watchtower are completely shameless here. They are using their mistake as more propaganda to get people to trust in the organization more. They're using this story without telling the full story and trying to get people to really believe that Jehovah will take care of them. And Jehovah will only take care of them if they remain faithful Jehovah's Witnesses.
Spiritual food was smuggled into the country by bicycle couriers who were traveling hundreds of kilometers.
2 times in one short video that we get Watchtower doing something less than admirable, bribing public officials and smuggling banned material. But can we just look back at how long this guy suffered? He goes from a refugee camp, then there's a war in Mozambique, so now he needs to go back to Malawi, where they're still under ban, and they're still going to prison. They're still having to smuggle literature in. This man has already, from what we've seen so far, a decade of his life just completely getting clobbered and blasted at every turn, at every corner. And these are when he has young kids. So their childhood completely gone. Why? Because Watchtower thinks that what one rule is in one country shouldn't be the same rule in a different country.
Than the regular paper, so that the couriers could carry double the amount. We also were supplied with the mini magazines that could be folded and be put into a pocket one day received a smuggled copy of the yearbook, which used to also contain the daily text. So what we did was that we copied all the day's text on the toilet tissues, and then we sent some of these to our sisters who were on the other prison blocks. All these were wonderful provisions from Jehovah that helped us quite a lot to be kept spiritually strong. In 2002, I was sent back to Zomba prison. But this time, not as a prisoner, but as a district overseer to care for a mini sect assembly. When I entered, my mind quickly went back to 32 years when I was in the same prison next to the execution gallows.
As a result of Watchtowers' inaction in this case, and don't get it twisted, there were people bringing up this inconsistency to the leaders of the Watchtower. That is all highlighted in that book, Crisis of Conscience, because there was a governing body member at that time in the 70s that had looked into this and brought this up. And again and again and again, bureaucracy won out over humanity. Their humanity was left at the door because they needed to follow the procedure. What was that procedure? A 2/3 majority vote. So even though there was a technical majority of people that did want to change this policy, it didn't happen. So, yeah, bureaucracy in action, I guess.
True. The words at Isaiah 54, verse 17 came true, which says, "No weapon formed against you will have any success."
Tell that to the women that watch their daughters by multiple men in front of them. Tell that to the women that were in the other prison block. I'm sure that was great in there for them. Tell that to all the people that died. Tell that of all the people that went through all of this and then realized that the doctrine was simply not true, and ended up leaving the organization only to get shunned by their family and friends that they went through all of this trauma dealing with. Tell that to them. No weapon you have against me will succeed. Righto, bucko. Mexico, Malawi, the Jehovah's Witnesses has to be one of the saddest stories I've heard in my entire life. And I say that because I understand the world is full of all sorts of chaos and pandemonium. But sometimes you can sort of track the chaos, and you can sort of find a reason or a thought process or something behind it. This is one of those that just makes you scratch your head and say, this was pointless. There was no reason for this. There was leaders of the organization at the time that didn't want to keep this policy, and yet they did. There was a majority of the leaders of the organization at that time that didn't want to keep this policy, and yet they're using this man's suffering and the suffering of all of the people, all of those women, all of those children, all of their years gone from their lives. They're using all of this human suffering to say, look, despite all hell breaking loose for this poor man, he stayed with Jehovah's organization. Isn't that encouraging So now if you get offered a promotion, or if you're having any serious doubts about whether or not your beliefs are true, just remember how much this guy suffered for those beliefs before you go questioning anything. I spent some time trying to write down a really clever, interesting, concluding point to make, but I kept coming back to just one thing. What the fuck? Why the fuck? And how the fuck? And that was about it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to all of the people that have supported me through Patreon. Thank you to all the people that have supported me during the live streams. That's been a lot of fun and will keep on continue to go. Just so you guys know, there is like a little membership thing. If you guys are wondering what that is, it's $3 a month. You get access to a special video. And then, like, if you ever hang out at the live streams, you get, like, a little badge next to your name, and then there's these funny little emotes of, like, finger guns and me dancing in tight pants, and I got a bunch of them that I made. So, anyway, if you guys are interested in that, that's why that little membership button is there. With all of that being said, thank you guys so much. We'll catch you next time.